Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Today, top 5 reasons Shedeur Sanders dropped in the NFL draft. Number 5, the Steelers. This perplexes me. As a matter of fact, I blame Pittsburgh for this whole problem. They have a need at quarterback. He's the second best one in the draft. Now, did they love him? Obviously not. But they're relying on Aaron Rodgers to sign with them and be their quarterback, and their plan B is nothing. I think if you are going to still sign Aaron Rodgers, you can draft Shedeur Sanders because Aaron Rodgers is a one-year hitch. As a matter of fact, that might be good. Aaron Rodgers circus takes away from Shedeur Sanders circus. But maybe, just maybe, Aaron Rodgers has dictated some terms here. I don't know. But the Steelers are always an organization with a plan. They've always had a plan. It doesn't look like they currently have one, and it makes no sense to me why you wouldn't have a plan at quarterback. Do you have to draft Shedeur Sanders? No. But he was the guy who was there to draft. Well, he was one of the guys. Jackson Dart went at 25. What's the difference between 25 and 21? Tyler Shuck went at 40. And then you still did not draft Shedeur Sanders all this time. So you really, as an organization, must not have liked him. But you didn't address quarterback at all, which makes his, not being on your roster that much more befuddling. And that, to me, is who really kind of started this whole thing. But there were several other factors. Number 4, there's not enough QB-thirsty teams. Look, there's 32 teams in the NFL, and at least 20 of them never had Shedeur on their board, not because they didn't think he was a good player, because they didn't need him. They didn't need a guy who could be potentially a starter or who could come in. Like, they have quarterbacks that they're fine with. Okay, so, like just starting at the top of the draft, the Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence. The Colts have 2 guys fighting it out. They just drafted Anthony Richardson a couple years ago. The Cowboys have Dak Prescott. The 49ers have Brock Purdy. I can kind of go on and on. And those are just the teams that were not in the playoffs last year. And then you go into the teams who are in the playoffs. Most of them have quarterbacks that they like. So you're taking 20 teams minimum off the board anyway. Then of those remaining 12, some of them are happy with their backup quarterback situation. They have a young backup that they're developing, and when they need another quarterback, they'll just get one higher up that's a bigger, higher money draft pick. So once he got past the first round, there were teams that just didn't have a spot for him. It has nothing to do with his talent or his attitude or anything like that. It's just a numbers crunch. So, that left kind of the Browns, who were in QB chaos anyway. Number 3, backup quarterbacks don't get drafted early. Once you get out of those first 40 to 43, 45 picks, you're talking about drafting guys who are backups. So you're not going to spend that kind of draft capital on a guy who's not going to come in and potentially start year 1. So that leaves you pretty much out of the first, let's say, 75 picks of the draft. And then when the second half of the third round comes along, it's more of a crapshoot. So he wasn't going to get picked until later anyway. Now, falling all the way to the 5th, that still, to me, was puzzling. Number 2.
Did you know that most calorie deficit calculators don't work? My dietitian recommended the Lasta to me, and it turned out to be the only one that got my calorie deficit right. Thanks to it, I lost 14 pounds in 1 week. Ready to kickstart your journey to healthy weight loss? Calculate your ideal calorie deficit using the Lasta app right now.
His camp did not respect the process. And this is what I will put on Shedeur and Dion and everybody around it. The NFL gives you opportunities. The Combine, the Senior Bowl, Big 12 Pro Day, all these other things to do, to show up, be interviewed, and do the things that the other players do. They only dipped their toe in those waters, and then their whole thing was, we ain't hard to find. So trying to rework the draft process through Shedeur, who, at best was going to be the second quarterback taken, and not Cam Ward. Cam Ward did a lot of these things. Now, did he do all of them? No. And Shedeur Sanders is not the first guy not to work out at the combine or not to go to the Senior Bowl and blah, blah, blah. All those things. He's not unique to that. But to not to participate in any real way in any of those things really irritated the NFL to a large part. You've got to bend the knee just a little bit. They didn't bend the knee at all. And look, I get that you are who you are and you're going to do that, but even Shedeur admitted that like they could have handled it a little bit differently when he did his press conference for the Browns yesterday or the day before. So trust the process, respect the process. You don't have to go all the way into the deep end of the process, but you do have to do some things, and that's what rubbed teams the wrong way. And then that caused this. NFL scouts gossip like 12-year-olds. The minute you do something that a respected scout doesn't like, and he starts telling all his scout buddies, those things spread like wildfire, and then it gets out in the NFL, atmosphere, and all the people, the Rappaports and Schefters, and everybody starts talking about it. Well, then it starts to kind of take on a life of its own. Look, Shedeur Sanders has never committed a crime. He's never done anything wrong that we know of, other than maybe be a little bit much and be a guy who's flashy and cocky. Well, all right. You've just described most NFL players. That's kind of how they roll. I just described everybody who's in the NBA Hall of Fame except Tim Duncan. That's professional athletes have that to them. If you're a good coach, you can handle it. He's also a 22-year-old kid. You have to break all these guys like Mustangs. Let's not pretend like this is some kind of new process. And don't get me started on the grain silos full of pieces of crap that the NFL has employed over the years, some of which are in their Hall of Fame. You don't think they were hard to deal with? Stop. Lose me with that. So the gossip is what kind of got out of control, and it does affect draft positions. It has in the past for a lot of guys. Oh, we think this guy's got a knee injury. Does he have a knee injury? No, but we think he does. Well, you have medicals on him. Well, there's something we think, and it just goes. Oh, he hurt his knee, he hurt his knee, he hurt his knee. That's what we heard about Andrew Billings when we were in Chicago, wondering why he fell as far as he did. He's been in the NFL for a decade now. Doesn't make sense all the time. The draft is not the most scientific process in the world. That's going to do it for this top 5. The rest of the week, I will pull out some nuggets from the draft. I'm not going to give you draft grades because that's an insane process, because every draft is incomplete until they play an actual game. That's going to do it. Smokey, bye-bye.